Thanks for everyone for tuning in to another episode of the Bully Resistance Show. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know that there's two ways that you can actually help me continue the fight against bullying in the public schools. First, if you haven't subscribed to the Bully Resistance Show, it doesn't cost you anything. All you have to do is just go to my website at www.davebond.org, and you'll see the banner and that says subscribe, and all you have to do is just click on that. The second way that you can help, you can be a monthly sponsor as low as $4 per month, and in return, you're going to get a free weekly digital download of a track of mine or a song of mine from the CDs that I have out, and also a monthly digital download CD. Now this way, you're not just giving money away, but you're getting something in return. So all you have to do is just go to my website at www.davebond.org, scroll down and click on the Patreon banner, and it's going to take you to get you or to give you some more information about that. So with no further ado, sit back and enjoy the next Bully Resistance Show. The Bully Resistance Show is brought to you by Parkersburg Jiu-Jitsu, a Pedro Sauer affiliate located in Vienna, West Virginia. Go to parkersburgbjj.com, or you can call 740-591-2706. And if you mention the Bully Resistance Show, you're going to receive 2 free weeks of training in self-defense and also a private lesson from one of our instructors. Restrictions do apply. The Bully Resistance Show is brought to you by Planet Fitness, located in Parkersburg, West Virginia, and Marietta, Ohio. They strive to create a workout environment where everyone feels accepted and respected. That's why at Planet Fitness in Parkersburg and Marietta, they take care to make sure their club is clean and welcoming. Their staff is friendly. There's certified trainers. Everything's there. So whether you're a first-time gym user or a fitness veteran, you always have a home in their judgment-free zone.
Welcome, everyone, to the Bully Resistance Show with David Wells, nationally known smooth jazz artist, CEO and co-founder of the Chocolate Jazz Foundation, and the co-host of a 2-hour syndicated radio program called Chocolate Jazz Radio. Bully Resistance is a weekly 1-hour show that's a motivational, informative, and inspirational program. We will have interviews with musicians, actors, government officials, politicians, psychologists, counselors, and just average day citizens. Of course, the topics will include making right choices, never giving up desire, discipline, determination, bullying in public school, the workplace, and in your community, bully resistance and prevention, self-defense, jiu-jitsu, and current affairs, and much, much more. And if you're ready, we are. Here's your host, David Wells.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in to another episode of the Bully Resistance Show with David Wells. My name is David, and today we have an upcoming politician that's running for West Virginia House of Delegates, the 10th District in Wood County, West Virginia, for those that aren't familiar with West Virginia. So at this time, I want to go ahead and introduce Luke Winters on the Bully Resistance Show. Luke, it's good to have you here today.
Thanks for having me, Dave. I appreciate it.
Before we get started, can you just give our listeners just a better idea of who you are, from where you were born, where you were raised, where you went to school, and so on?
Absolutely. So I was born and raised here in Vienna, West Virginia, Parkersburg. Lived here my whole life. My family grew up here. I went to PHS, Parkersburg High School, then went on to West Virginia University, where I got a degree in sport management, minors in business administration, communication studies, and personal training. So I kind of have a background in a bunch of different areas.
Okay.
Like I said, I was raised here, so this community is just very important to me. I love West Virginia with a passion, but I think there's lots of things that we can work to improve on in this state and in this community.
Right. You know, I have to honestly say that when I first started this podcast, look, I really didn't have any intentions to go ahead and use a podcast as a platform for, politics. And, I've actually seen you on a regular basis, almost more than my wife, and we train jiu-jitsu at Parksburg at jiu-jitsu in Vienna, right. And when you were, I don't know if you were talking to Carson, but you mentioned that you were going to be running for office, and it sort of perked my ears up a little bit because I had no idea that you were even leaning in that direction whatsoever. And then when we started talking about what issues and policies you want to go ahead and push in regards to the opioid epidemic, and you were talking about the education and you were talking about bullying and everything else, I'm thinking, you know what, this could be something that my listeners need to know. Now, I'll be honest with you. In regards to politics, I honestly try to avoid discussing politics and religion, and the reason why, and this is with this
touchy subject,
right? It is, and especially with my side of the family and with my friends, it seems like they're really one-sided, and they're really not open-minded to hear what the other side has to say, and with me, I just don't listen to Fox. I listen to Fox, CNN, and MNBC. Is that it?
MSNBC.
Yeah, and you can tell I really listen to that. but I just really try to get really well balanced out. Now I might lose a lot of listeners when I say this. How I vote, it's not based on the party. If somebody is going to go ahead and benefit me through the policies that they want to go ahead and push, if it's going to benefit me, my family, my business, my foundation, especially with bullying and with the kids, then I'm going to vote for the person. I don't care who you are. And so that being said, let me ask you this: can you tell me when you started getting interested in actually politics?
Absolutely. So I grew up, half my family was kind of conservative, the other half very liberal. So when I first mentioned, I agree that both sides tend to only listen to their side of the story. There's no sharing of information. There's no open discussion. I think that's where most of our progress can come from, is where people just sit down like we are doing right here and talking about the issues that matter to each of us, not based on like party lines, not on platforms, just on solutions to problems that we all face.
Right.
And that's what my campaign's all about. I want to reach out to the people and talk to them and find what solutions they have, what problems they're facing, and how we can work together to solve them. Having said that, my interest in politics really started in high school, and then when Bernie started running. So in 2015 is when I started joining the Bernie Sanders campaign, volunteering. I ran a Twitter page for him in Morgantown for Bernie.
Now, what year was that? Was that 16 then?
The election was in 16, so everything prior to that. So 2015 is when I really started getting engaged in politics.
Okay.
And then this current cycle, I've been really interested in Andrew Yang. He's providing solutions that are outside of what people normally discuss. And
right.
Then also with Stephen Noble Smith running for governor in West Virginia, he's talking to the people just like I want to do and trying to find real solutions to problems.
Okay, so here's what happens in any given conversation. If usually you have a Republican over here, you have a Democrat over here, and you start talking, we agree and everything else, and it always comes overheated, and it's just one of those things where, what you're doing, that you're crossing the aisle,
right?
And you're saying, listen, I want to work with you. This is not about me. It's not about my party. It's about the community and what you can do for the community. Mm-hmm. And I think that's awesome. That being said, Luke, so what are some policies or issues that you want to go ahead and try to get improvement on, I guess?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so first, I want to address the opioid crisis. That's devastated West Virginia. Not only West Virginia, the entire country, but I'm focused on West Virginia.
Right.
I want to improve our infrastructure. Our roads are crumbling everywhere you drive. I mean, we see it on Grand Central, there's potholes everywhere, and it's even worse throughout the rest of the state.
Right.
And then I want to improve our education. I think we can all agree those are things that need to be improved on. That's only going to make West Virginia better.
You know, on the last show, I was interviewing the principal, Richard Summers, from Jackson, and one of the topics that we were talking about was the opioid. Here's West Virginia has a stigma about them. When I'm outside of the state doing concerts or hooking up with other musicians or working with them, you know, when they ask me where I'm from, and I'm from West Virginia, they get this, oh, West Virginia, you know, and I don't know, you know, if it's because they got that, you know, picture of West Virginia and what we look like, what we sound like, or anything else. But you know what, I get tired of it. And when I do school assemblies in West Virginia, I really try to hit home with a lot of these kids. But what I was getting at is when I was talking with Mr. Summers, I think, and there's so many statistics out there about the opioid, the overdoses,
right.
And I'm sure that you're probably familiar with those. But is West Virginia in the top 5, or are they like number 1 with the most overdoses?
So the rate of overdoses per citizens is the highest, but we don't actually have the highest number of overdoses. Okay. So opioid use per resident is highest. It's almost at 50. It was like 49.6 people out of 100 residents.
Oh, geez.
So extremely,
per capita,
per capita,
we're number 1.
Yes.
So why? I mean, why is West Virginia? Why do we have so many overdoses then? I mean, who's to blame?
That's the $1 million question. I think there's lots of different factors that play into that. It's the pharmaceutical companies. They dumped millions and millions of opioids into towns. So Kermit, West Virginia, it's in Mingo County, down at the very southern part of West Virginia.
Where's that? Is that like near?
It's right on the border of Kentucky.
Okay. So it's not near Princeton, Virginia. It's on the other.
It's close to, yeah. I believe it's close to the Princeton, Bluefield area, just a couple counties over. So there's a town, Kermit, where the company McKesson, they dumped millions and millions of opioids, like hydrocodone, oxycodone, into these 3 different little pharmacies right there in that city, which has a population of 400 people. So it was, for a 6-month period, there was 3 million opioids drove into that city, which is about 10,000 per day. So there's no reason for that aside from corruption and money.
Right.
So that's one factor. Our poor education system, we rank at the very bottom in education throughout the country. So
are you, not to interrupt, but are you talking about the kids' test results that they take, or how do we figure that? Is that what that is?
Yeah, there's a standard they measure right now. I believe it's in 8th grade, where with like math and English, they take those test scores, and that's how that's calculated. I think that is definitely up for debate if that's a good measurement or not, because I think we need to focus more on learning and less on testing.
Right.
Absolutely. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So we have to improve our education, not only around addiction and substance use disorder, but just in general. So we have to improve like our STEM, have to improve math.
But let me ask you this. Don't you think that if we had more money to put in the education, then are we able to hire more teachers, or be able to train them more? I mean, do you feel like if we had more money, would that help?
Absolutely, it would. So we have to pay our teachers more. We have to invest in their benefits, so PEIA. We have to give them the tools to where they can feel free to teach in the classroom, not this standard that they're trying to meet. They got an education to teach. We have to let them do that.
Right.
We have to decrease the classroom sizes. We can't have one teacher teaching 30 students. That's not feasible. It's not fair to the teachers. It's not fair to the students.
Right.
They're not getting the quality education they need.
Right.
So we have to decrease the classroom sizes to probably around 15 to 18 students max. You can't have 30.
So there's more, so the kids don't get lost in the shuffle. And
Right, absolutely.
Okay. One of the things that I was talking with Mr. Summers about, and things where needs improvement, he said this. He goes, you know what? If you actually go to each school, you have maybe 400 to 1,800 kids, and they might have one counselor that deal with 400 kids. West Virginia, a lot of these schools are on what kind of lunches? They don't pay for the lunches because it's a poverty type of thing, and but I'm sure these kids are dealing with don't know where my next meal is going to be coming from. They don't know if they're going to go ahead and get fed over the weekend. Because their mom and dad might be, addicted to drugs or anything else. So you have one counselor, dealing with all these kids. Do you feel like that's, that can be improved anyway by...
Absolutely. So I think there was a couple of different problems you brought up there. So first, we need to have more professional mental health workers in our schools to address the kids, whether that be regarding bullying or substance use or just mental health problems in general.
Right.
And like you said, for a lot of kids in public schools, these meals are sometimes the only meals they get.
Right.
So we have to fund that. We can't have kids not getting lunch because their family can't pay for it. That's not fair to them.
Right.
It's not an environment conducive to learning.
Right.
Or any type of growth for that matter.
Right. Let me ask you this. I was reading an article about the opioid epidemic, and there's a Democrat from Connecticut, Senator Murphy. Is it Senator Christopher Murphy or something from Connecticut? He was telling us how the epidemic affects everybody. What a lot of us don't know, but the opioid, it's not. It's everybody's involved with it. You're talking about people that are black and white and parents that are well off and not well off. I mean, it's everybody that's involved in it. And he said this. He goes, he's pressing for Congress. And I want you to tell me what you think about his. He said he's pressing Congress for increased funding for crisis intervention, long-term treatment, which you mentioned when we talked a few weeks ago, medication therapy, and a crackdown on drug companies and physicians who push painkillers that aren't necessary. And you said the right thing. So obviously, you guys are pretty much on the same. Are you guys different in any way in regards to that?
Multiple ways. I agree with everything he said right there, everything you read. I'd also like to point out I agree that substance use disorder addiction does not discriminate based on race, gender, socioeconomic status, anything. You can be rich, black, white, it does not matter.
Okay.
Addiction will affect your family. And like we've seen it here, you see very few people who don't have a relative affected by some kind of addiction. Like I know people who personally died. I'm sure you do as well. It's rampant here. So that congressman's plan, I agree. We need to increase our funding for like residential treatment, which I worked in over in Marietta at the Oriana House. There's great benefits to those programs. We need to increase the medication-assisted therapy, medication-assisted treatment, the MAT programs.
No, what is that all? I'm not familiar with that.
So like Suboxone, methadone, the newest one that I'm most familiar with is called Vivitrol. So when an opioid is like ingested or taken, it latches on to the receptors in the brain, and that's what causes the high and everything. Mm-hmm. So when you take the Vivitrol, it's an injection, a shot, that puts like a cap over top of the receptor, so the opioid can get in to that receptor and stimulate that, so you don't get high. The only downside of it is they'll take whatever opiate they're taking. They won't feel the effect because the Vivitrol is working, and then they might try to take more, which could possibly lead to an overdose. That's the only downside. But other than that, it's working very well.
Okay, so so we need to come out with different medications to switch off what they're using. Is that what you're saying?
Possibly. There's always going to be improvements because, there are downsides to that. So that needs to be improved upon. But I think the biggest thing that we're missing here in West Virginia and the United States in general is we approach addiction differently than other countries who have successfully treated.
And how's that?
So let me start first. So there was, in the early 20th century, there was experiments done with rats in cages where you put the rat in a cage and you give them a water bottle with regular water and another water bottle laced with heroin or cocaine. What you find was, first off, the rats don't know what's in the water. They have to test both water bottles to figure it out. So what they would find was that the rat would always prefer the water laced with heroin, cocaine, and eventually they would die within normally a week or two,
right?
Most likely from malnutrition. And then in the 1970s, a professor from Canada came along named Bruce Alexander. He was looking at this experiment, and he said, well, of course, these rats became addicted to these substances because their life has no value or no meaning. You put them in a cage and give them a drug, of course they're going to do it. They have nothing else to live for. So he came up with an experiment called Rat Park, where he turned his garage into like a heaven or a paradise for rats, where he gave them all kinds of balls and food, cheese, other rat friends so they can have all kinds of sex. Anything a rat would enjoy in life and would want, they have in Rat Park.
Okay.
And in this experiment, they still have the regular water bottle and the water bottle laced with drugs. What he found in Rat Park was that the rats don't compulsively use that drug water anymore because they have all this fulfillment in their life. They don't want to be anesthetized anymore because their life is enjoyable.
Okay.
So he even went as far as to get rats addicted in the first cage and then transfer them over to Rat Park, and they would wean them off of their addiction by themselves. So I think we need to look at addiction a little bit differently. The first experiment taught us, or it was parroted to us, that if you take a drug enough times, you're going to be addicted to that drug. So there's chemical hooks inside the drug that you get addicted to. It changes your brain chemistry. Those exist. They're real. But they're not the primary cause of addiction like we've been told they are. The primary causes are your environment and connection and the enjoyment and fulfillment you have in your life. So
let me ask you this. Keep that thought. So West Virginia is a rural place. There's not really much to do here. So do you feel like because kids or the environment is, there's not too much to do, they just gravitate to something like that, either alcohol or drugs or anything else? Do you feel that that's
quite possibly? It's definitely a factor. I think if we had more things to do, it would decrease the opioid use, but we have to address the depression and mental health first. So I think if we did give our children and people around here more activities to do, depression would go down. But we have to, it's all interconnected. So the poverty, the education, we have to address those first. The addiction is a symptom of the poverty, that the lack of education.
I see.
So we have to address these concerns before we actually get to the addiction problem.
So in regards to the 10th district, how are you going to address the opioid epidemic? In regards to, okay, listen, I'm going to go ahead and do all I can to go. Someone at your level, as House Delegate, what can you do? Are you going to be able to say, hey, listen, are you going to go to the Senate, or are you going to go to talk with the governor and say, listen, man, in this district, because you're talking about the 10th district, it's pretty much Vienna, Parkersburg, Lubeck. Yep. It's a big area, so is that how you're going to go ahead and get people to listen to you?
Right. So this can't be changed by just me. This has to be a movement of people hearing a solution or coming together on a solution, saying, okay, this is what we want to do. This is how we're going to get it done. So Stephen Smith, candidate for governor. You can go on his website, wvcan'twait.com.
Okay.
He has outlined many different plans on how he's going to fix West Virginia. One of them is addressing the opioid crisis and addiction. So he goes into many different things that the congressman from Connecticut you mentioned earlier said.
Right.
So increasing funding for inpatient programs, residential treatment facilities, medication-assisted treatments, mental health therapy. It all ties into education and decreasing poverty. All those things are interconnected. So what I'm proposing is we follow countries who have actually fixed their opioid crises. So Switzerland and Portugal. It's not based on party. These are just solutions to the problem.
Right.
So Switzerland, very conservative country. They make Donald Trump look like Oprah. So
that's pretty amazing.
It's interesting, but in the year 2000, they had a really bad opioid crisis. And what they decided to do was legalize heroin. It seems very exaggerated and over the top, but so the results speak for themselves. They legalized heroin, and they had clinics set up all around the country for, if you had a heroin addiction, you would go to the clinic and they give you the heroin. You can't take it out with you for reasons so you can't sell it on, and the main reason was so you don't overdose. They want to monitor you while you're there.
Okay.
It's free. The program's free. If you get a job, then your insurance will pay for it. But those costs are covered with the extreme reduction in street crime, overdoses, everything like that. So what they found was that street crime was cut by about 50%. Prostitution ended because it turns out that people don't want to be on the streets having sex for money if there's a better alternative.
Wow.
Who knew?
Wow.
HIV, things like that, all decreased. So you're going to save this money on the back end, and you're going to solve the problem in a way that we don't think about it here. So they're solving it by making people's lives better instead of incarcerating them, arresting them, and shaming them like we do here in America.
Yeah, exactly.
Because what they did was they looked at Rat Park, and they realized if people are put in jail, then that's guaranteeing the same addiction they saw in those rats.
Luke, where can they actually do some research on that rat parks? I mean, is it online anywhere?
Yep, you can put it on YouTube.
Just rat park?
Yep.
Okay,
Park.
and then in regards to the country about how they legalized heroin, I mean, how can they find out more information about that?
The United Nations Office of Drug and Crime, they have studies on it.
Okay, and so they can refer to that.
Yeah, that's the biggest office that studies that in the whole world, the United Nations Office of Drug and Crime.
Okay. Well, I think if I'm going to go ahead and research that myself.
I think it's the UNODC.
See, that's the thing. That's you think outside the box. Mm. You know what I mean? And you're giving us ideas, and you're giving us options. That we have as a typical citizen. I just never really do any research. You know what I mean?
I didn't either at first until I got a career in the field. Mm-hmm. So I worked as a treatment assistant at the Oriana House, and then a therapist. I had no knowledge of this prior to that. I got interested in it, so I just started doing my own research, and this is what I stumbled upon.
Okay. So the person that's actually running for governor that is pretty much on the same page as you is Smith?
Stephen Smith, yes.
So how's he doing on the polls? Do you know, or is it too early to tell?
I'm honestly not sure about polling. I believe he's high. I have seen that he has individual donations. Mm-hmm. He's received more than double any candidate for West Virginia in the governor's history has received. I think he has many, many donations.
Yeah, I think the governor we have just needs to see you later.
Yeah, I would agree.
So anyway, lost some more listeners, but who cares? Me and you, we work with the kids, and we train jiu-jitsu for years, and it's a self-defense. What's your thoughts in regards to how we can cut down or prevent bullying from getting worse? Because, of course, in West Virginia, we're one of the 5 states that have the most bullying, across the country. What's your thoughts on that?
So bullying's really personal to me. When I was growing up, I was bullied all the time.
See, I didn't know this. Yeah. I didn't know this, Luke.
Yeah. Learn something new every day, Dave.
I do.
I do as well.
Wow.
But it obviously has to be addressed 100%. We have to try to end bullying. I don't think it can ever be fully stopped, but it can definitely be reduced drastically.
I bet they don't bully you now. You kick some...
Not really.
No?
I mean, that comes from jiu-jitsu and gaining confidence in yourself. Like, as I grew older, I grew out of it.
Yeah.
But if I would have had jiu-jitsu when I was younger, I think that would have made my life a million times better. Just because I would have gotten that confidence so much earlier, learned how to stand up for myself.
Okay.
So I think there needs to be some kind of program where that's implemented in our schools, like literally part of curriculum, part of your education. I think that would be a great way to cut down on bullying. We have to hold adults accountable for the bullying. So they have to teach their kids that's wrong.
Okay, well, I can see that.
Mm-hmm. We have to hold educators not responsible, but they have to enforce the laws in schools and the rules in schools. So
right. Here's my take on that. I've been on both sides. I've been on the side of the teachers, administration. I've been on the sides of the parents. Mm-hmm. I've talked with hundreds of kids. What we're finding out is, in regards to the elementary schools, is the teacher's job is to, and the parents' job is to inform the kids what bullying is. You know, I mean, I was just at an elementary school in Beckley, and I asked the kids. I said, "Okay, guys, how many can tell me what bullying is?" And maybe 5 hands go up. You know, so I told them. I said, "Listen, bullying happens on a regular basis over a period of time. That's what happens." But see, what a lot of these kids think. Well, Luke came up and called me a name, and so he'll come up to the teacher and said, "Luke bullied me." You know, it's just, we all have bad days. We all say something that's, mean sometimes, and it's all said and done. Then what we're finding out is that with the middle school and with the high school, the percentage of bullying I even talked with Mr. Summers about this. I even said, listen, statistics show that 85% of all bullying, there's no intervention. Well, but see, here's the deal, is that the majority of the reason is because the kids that get bullied aren't letting their parents know, aren't letting their teachers know, and the reason why is because they don't want it to get worse for them. Yep. So that's the reason why. That's my take on it, and that's why that me and you are so we really stress about getting involved in jiu-jitsu.
Right. Yeah, I agree 100%. So that's definitely one of the problems is, I know I faced that same thing when I was younger. I don't want to tell my bully because I'm going to get beaten up twice as bad.
Right.
So that's the problem we have to address. And honestly, I'm not sure the correct way to go about it. I think there's probably multiple different ways to improve that. Mm-hmm. So we need to make how you can anonymously say that I'm being bullied. This is what's happening to me. But I think I'm going to defer to you. What ways do you think are best to handle this? Because you have more expertise in this than I do.
Well, one of the things that I stress with elementary schools mostly, and part of middle school, is that I think the only way the bullying is going to stop is that if the kids take action. Okay. And I honestly think is that if me and you were going down or we were at the mall and and some people are starting to bully you, of course, and I'm thinking, okay, well, of course that's a bad example. If a elementary student would see somebody getting bullied, I know that person feels uncomfortable. I know that person doesn't want this person to be bullied. But that person is also thinking, okay, what's the repercussions of me intervening? Right. And that's what I stress to these kids. They have to go ahead and they have to take action themselves. And what I mean by that is that if you see somebody getting bullied, no matter how mean, big, scary they are, all you have to do is just go up to them, say, stop it. You don't have to you don't have to yell. You don't have to scream. Don't have to get physical, and then just walk away. And that's been proven where it just takes the power out of the bully.
Right. It's almost like a power in numbers kind of thing. So this person has my back. They have my back.
That's right.
It's going to stop the bullying.
That's right. And I think we got to encourage the kids to pull together, stand up for each other, and treat others like you want to be treated. And I think that is the biggest key of it all. I think that the teachers. I am a big fan of teachers. You are too, and you're going to support them
Absolutely.
just as much as anybody else. I just think that they just got to. It's really. I think what you said is about the parents. I think the parents need to get more involved in their lives. Are you getting bullied? And just try to take care of it. One other thing is that we discussed was that Mr. Summers, I was asking him, I said, what can we do for kids that go from elementary to middle school? Because when kids go from elementary to middle school, they don't know what to do. It's a new environment. There's more people, right? And then same thing with middle to high school. And I think this could be a good idea. I feel like there should be something like jiu-jitsu involved in middle school and in high school, because it gets them involved, in a program. It gets them involved with other people, and you build relationships and everything else, plus also builds their confidence and everything else. I don't know, man. I think it's just a tough road. I think bullying is going to be around.
I agree.
Forever.
But I think we have to do something about it, because doing nothing, that's not going to change. So I think something like jiu-jitsu has to be implemented, like you said, whether that be middle school, high school, elementary school. I think the younger probably the better.
Right.
But we have to act, because if not, we're just as guilty as the bullies if we don't try to stop it.
Right.
In my opinion.
I agree. I want to move on to when I was putting this interview together and your thoughts. You mentioned that West Virginia needs to legalize recreational
cannabis.
Now, is that CBD that you're talking about?
CBD and THC.
Okay, what's you got to enlighten me, because listen, man, being involved in jiu-jitsu, there's so many practitioners that are taking CBD for inflammation and healing, everything else. So tell me the difference between the two, CBD and what was it?
THC.
Yeah, tell me.
CBD, cannabidiol, that's like there's many different cannabinoids in cannabis. There's hundreds of them. And those are the two most commonly heard of, CBD and THC. So CBD treats inflammation and pain like that. So we give it to my dog who has like bad hips, and it helps her walk better.
Okay.
I know, like you said, many people in jiu-jitsu put it on their joints just because it alleviates the pain. It's great for elderly people who have like arthritis or joint problems. Many, many different health benefits to it. THC, that's the psychoactive component of the cannabis. So that's what gives you like the head high or the body high.
Okay.
That's the part where people start to wonder if it should be legal or not.
So why do you think it should be legal then?
It's not any different than like alcohol. It's even more beneficial than alcohol. So there's proven medical benefits to cannabis. But currently it's still a federally Schedule 1 drug, or Schedule 3.
Okay.
Well, it's scheduled a drug, so it cannot be medically studied. It's saying that there's no medical benefits is what it's scheduled for right now. So if we legalized it, just like many other states have done, that increases tax revenue by tens, even hundreds of millions of dollars, which the state greatly needs to fund education and all these different programs that we want to implement, increasing or bettering the infrastructure, all kinds of these programs, bullying.
Let me ask you this, and we'll get back to that. When these gambling sites, these slot machines, were coming in, that when they were approved, then you see all these little cafes and everything else where you go in and you start gambling, everything else. What we were told, and correct me if I'm wrong, what we were told is that big part of the revenue was going to go to education.
Right.
Well, I've heard both sides of the story. I've heard, well, yeah, we're not getting a fraction of what we were supposed to get. Have you heard anything about that?
I have not. I believe that our public school system is mainly funded through the lottery, if I'm not mistaken. I won't swear to it, but I believe it's funded through the lottery.
Okay, so the gambling, all that is...
Yeah, like, so you buy a lottery ticket. I believe that those tax dollars go to our public education.
I would be curious if that was the case. Mm-hmm. Back to the, the marijuana or what we were talking about. So, CBD, I can, I think if it would help me, of course I would take that.
That's legal right now.
Right now, let me ask you this.
Go down to Smoker Friendly and buy that right now.
So, but don't you think that with that CBD, it hasn't really been out that long? Do they feel like it's really helping, or it's just still like on a trial basis? You know what I mean? I mean, it's real.
Right.
It's
You're
brand
saying,
new.
like, is there scientifically backed evidence for it?
Yeah, I mean, because I hear people say, well, it depends where you get it, or, go here or there. I mean, it's just like you get good and you get bad. So, I mean, it's just like, and does it even work?
That's one of the reasons that I'm pushing for legalization, because it needs to be regulated. You don't know what you're getting from people. So it can be contaminated with something that quite possibly might kill you. Oh. So let's say you're using like heroin or meth. You're not going to get pure heroin or meth on the street. It's going to be laced with many other things like cocaine, fentanyl. Okay. Or there are things that could be very, very dangerous to you. So that's why it needs to be regulated and everything's medically pure. Okay, so what you're saying is that if it's regulated, then we're guaranteed a good product. Right. If it's regulated, it's safer, and then we can use those tax dollars to help improve the state. If it's regulated, that eliminates the street level dealers. You don't have anybody on the streets now who's trying to sell alcohol. Right. You don't have big fights between Budweiser and Corona for like territory. That's what we have right now. Sure. Are these drug dealers and gangs fighting over territory and consumers? And if you legalize that ends that. So it ends the violence, all these overdoses. This improves a lot of things. Right.
Well, I think it's just pretty interesting. We can talk about these issues all day long. I'm really fascinated about politics. I would love to be able to discuss this. It would be great to discuss politics in a calm manner where you hear both sides of the stories. Absolutely. You know what I mean? And it's like when you get in fights, there's two sides of the story, that's involved. Now, before we wrap things up, I have a series of questions that I have to ask you. Okay. And you can answer them just in short, answers and everything else. And then we'll just go ahead and wrap things up. I would like to go ahead and have you back on the show, and probably when is the actual elections then?
So the primary is May 12th, and then the general election is November 3rd. So you have to register 21 days prior to the election. I want to let everybody know that 17-year-olds, if you're going to turn 18 prior to the general election, you can vote in the primary election. You just have to register to vote.
Okay, I'll say that again.
So if you're 17 years old right now, Dave. Okay. So you're 17, right? But you're going to be 18 years old on November 2nd. Okay. You can vote on May 12th in the primary election as long as you register prior to it. Okay. So how where can people go to get more information about you, your policies, the issues that you want to push? I mean, you have a Facebook page, I know. Right. So they can go there and ask any questions or anything else? Yep, they can message me on Facebook. Luke Winters, we have a Facebook page in the works. Luke Winters for House of Delegates District 10. Nice. Then also a website that's getting started as well. That's in the works right now also. Oh, really? So I can give you that information whenever it's available. Yeah, and what we'll do is I'll go ahead and put it on my Facebook page and sort of just direct them. So as soon as you get that, I can direct them. So because they need to see what you're thinking, what your plans are. Absolutely. I want to get those ideas out to the people, and I want the people's ideas to come to me. I want to know what their solutions are to these problems. We can fix them together. Right. And I have to commend, I'm not for sure who's all a big fan of Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin, he doesn't pick sides either.
I mean, he's really, he'll tell you how like it is.
Right.
I mean, with this whole Trump things, he's thinking it's a bunch of garbage and the same thing. But he's I think he's really balanced. And he's a Democrat, and he does what the people needs to see. But anyway, okay. So, but the first question, what is your definition of success?
Interesting question. So I think that's different for every single person. Every single person has a different definition of success. So I would say it's just obtaining whatever goal you set for yourself. And I think success is always expanding. So you're never going to quite reach complete success. You might reach it incrementally,
right?
Like little goals. But there's always something else you can achieve. So like for me, I want to continue doing jujitsu.
And that's being successful.
Yeah, absolutely it is.
Okay.
Like Andy, for example, he's 64 years old and he can still do jujitsu. I say that's a success.
Yeah.
For sure. I want to keep educating myself. That's my biggest thing. I love learning new things.
And that's being successful.
Yes, 100%.
I understand where you're coming from. So the next question, what's one word that best describes you?
I would say curious.
Curious? Nice.
Like I said, I love learning new things. I can talk to anybody. I want everybody's opinions on how to solve these problems. So I'd say curious.
I think you'll be a great politician, man.
Hope so.
I just, you play your cards right, you'll be able to go ahead and just become, a state senator and then a governor, and then we'll just get the United States senator. And
I think if you help the people, then anybody could be a great politician.
See, now that was deep, Luke. Okay, then another question. What is one of your biggest pet peeves? Now, this could be a pet peeve with, Whitney. It could be with jiu-jitsu. It could be with your family. But what is one of your pet peeves?
So who do I want
to... Be careful.
Who do I want to make mad? Is basically what you're asking me. Well, I'll give you... Okay. It's probably not the biggest one, but it's the first one that came to my mind. Okay. So Whitney and I pick on each other all the time. For anybody who doesn't know, Whitney's my fiance. She does jiu-jitsu with both of us. She's my campaign manager.
Yeah, nice.
They tell you to have a smarter campaign manager than yourself. So that's why I picked her.
Good. See, that was nice.
Well, because I'm about to be mean, so I have to be nice first.
Okay. We can edit this.
No, it's all right. It's a good joke. It's a running joke. But so I like doing the dishes, as weird as that sounds. I enjoy doing the dishes by hand, clean everything off. I don't know why. It kind of relaxes me. It gives me
OCD?
something to do.
Are you
Maybe.
OCD?
Yeah,
okay.
A little bit.
Okay.
A little bit. So we have like a sponge to clean off the dishes, and it drives me insane when she leaves the sponge in the sink and doesn't take it out of the sink to where it's not being like soaked constantly or just contaminated with other food. It drives me insane.
I understand. You know what? It's funny. I have to say, we were both at the tournament. Mm-hmm. The jiu-jitsu, for those that don't know anything about this, it's Fuji is a national franchise, and they had a tournament in
Charleston.
And so anyway, myself and a few others, we went ahead and competed. And then of course Luke came in and Whitney came in and to coach Carson. And what really blew me away was that I don't like to compete, man. It's extremely stressful, and you have to understand is that it's just a one-on-one competition, and the other guy across the mat wants to rip your head off. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's not, but I like doing it because it pushes us to train. But anyway, Whitney didn't even bring her gi, right?
Right.
So anyway, it was just like, I was talking with her and Luke and everything else. And then a few minutes later, she comes in and she was dressed. And she said she just decided to go ahead and compete. And I thought that was amazing.
Right. Yeah, I'll tell the story if you don't mind hearing it.
Sure, man.
So Whitney, Carson, and my friend Tommy, he's also volunteering on my campaign, came down. You know Tommy.
Yep.
And just being around that environment, it makes you want to compete if you're not already signed up. Like me, myself, I'd said before we went down there that I was going to regret not competing, but I really didn't feel like it. My head just wasn't in it.
Yeah, that's a different conversation, different podcast. Right. Okay, go ahead.
But so Whitney, she was very excited to compete after she was seeing everybody rolling. And it was, so the deadline for the registration actually closed at noon when the tournament started. And I checked my phone, it said 12:01. She said, I wonder if I can still compete. So she went and asked, and they let her do it. Jeez. They changed the registration date to the next day because she couldn't actually still sign up. So I had to move it back.
Oh.
Then Mike, our coach, he had a gi in his car. So he went out and got Whitney his gi. So that's the gi she wore.
Oh, my God. That's where she got it?
Yep. And I went out to the car to get her blue belt. And I was rushing because it was, like I said, already afternoon when the adult tournament was supposed to be starting, and normally the females go first. So I ran out to the car to get the blue belt. There's a little railing. I stepped over the first time. On the way back, there was a bunch of mud around this railing, and I just thinking to myself, I have to get back as quickly as possible because she might be stepping on the mat right now to compete and doesn't even have her belt. So I'm just going to hurdle this little bar. I mean, it's up to like my knee. It's not that big of a deal.
It's like a handrail.
Right.
Something. Okay.
And I step in the mud, and as soon as I step and plant my foot to jump, I fall right on my back.
Did you get that on video?
I hope so. If somebody has that, I would like to see it, honestly. I'm not sure how I got hurt. I will give credit to jiu-jitsu for the last 3 years. Teach me how to fall so I don't hurt myself.
Break fall.
Exactly. But this hoodie that I'm wearing currently was covered in dirt. My pants were covered in dirt.
I'm sure it had a print of the logo on the mud there.
There was a little butt print. We looked when we came back through to leave.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was when you told me that I was laughing. Okay, let me ask you this: what natural gift would you most like to possess? It could be, from, I don't know, man, from singing to anything.
A natural gift.
I can come back to that if you want.
I mean, I would really like to have like an eidetic memory. I don't know who wouldn't. I think that would be great.
Is that like a photographic memory?
Yeah, so you read something, you understand it, and then you never forget it.
Yeah, I think I would like that too. Okay, let me ask you this. Who is your favorite band today?
Who
do you listen to?
That's tough. I'm going to say country-wise, I'm a big fan of Thomas Rhett. And Brantley Gilbert.
Oh, really?
Love them a lot.
What do you think about Chris Stapleton?
I like Chris Stapleton.
Are you serious?
My grandmother, my nanny's absolutely in love with him.
Okay, now listen, man. My wife and I, we go rounds, and she just loves him, and I just dog, because we saw him on those New Year's Eve in Nashville, and I'm thinking, God, this guy is like really, but he's a good writer, but I don't see it, and she will get so emotional in regards to how much she liked it. So anyway.
But Woody and I will go over to my grandparents' house to play like card games or something with them just because it's a great time. And every time they have one of those Google Homes or Google Mini, whatever it is. And my nanny always say, Google, play Chris Stapleton radio. And the first song is always Tennessee Whiskey.
Yep. Well, that's a good song. I like that. Okay, one last question. Tell me something true that almost nobody agrees with you on. It could go with jiu-jitsu, the best, I don't know, cook, anything.
Almost nobody agrees with me on.
And we can't, and Republicans are not, that doesn't include Republicans.
See, I might be registered a Democrat, but I switched to independent because I'm really not a fan of the Democratic Party either. I'm not.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Parties. I'm registered Democrat now just so I could be on the Democratic ballot for the primary election.
But you were independent before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So I used to argue with John all the time at jiu-jitsu about half guard.
Oh, you did?
Mm-hmm. He would always tell me it's just like a stalling position, and
dude,
because I just wasn't part of his game, which is fair. I mean, like there's parts of my game that I'm sure other people use all the time to great effect that I just can't do, and I just don't do it. But I always loved half guard.
Yeah, because you know why? Because that is a position that you get set up for your triangles, your damn triangles. I hate
tons
those.
of sweeps from there too. That's another reason I like it.
Yeah, but every time, man, if I get a half card, I have to worry about you getting me in a triangle.
Right.
You know, because you sort of you get my arm and you sort of and push this out and you just,
There's so many different things you can do. You can fight for the underhook. I can sweep to the same side leg that I've trapped. You can go both ways, and that's why I like it so much. I think it's a very offensive position as long as you can get that underhook.
It's an old man's position.
That's fine. I don't want to get hurt, so I'll play the old man's game.
That's awesome. So listen, before we wrap things up, the way that the listeners can see right now is through Facebook right now, but you have a website that's coming up and then an actual Facebook page. So
correct.
I'm sure you'll make an announcement on Facebook page.
Yes.
So your Facebook page is just Luke Winters?
Yes.
It's not Luke.Winters?
No,
it's
just Luke Winters.
Luke Winters. And again, what I'll do is that I'll go ahead and I really want to see you be elected here.
Absolutely.
But anyway, that being said, that's about all we have for the Bully Resistance Show with David Wells. Before we go, I want to let you know that there's ways that you can help me fight against bullying. As I mentioned before, you can share this show with Luke on social media, Facebook page, Instagram. It's going to benefit both of us. And this way we can also bring awareness against bullying. Secondly, if you haven't subscribed to the Bully Resistance Show, it doesn't cost you anything. Just go on my website at www.davebond.org. Thirdly, you can be a monthly supporter. And what I mean by that is that for low as $5 per month, which is just the price of a specialty coffee at Starbucks, you'll get in return either my song of the week and also a free digital download CD of the month. And all you have to do is just go to www.davebond.org and you click on the Patreon banner, and that'll take you to get you some more information. So until next time, thanks for listening.